Hey, everybody, it's my pleasure to present my longtime friend, Oakland Raiders, Raider great tight end, one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history, Ray Chester. Ray, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Zinni. Good to see you, and say hi and happy holidays to all of your audience out there. I'm well. And Zinni, good to see you, and say hi and happy holidays to all of your audience out there.
And Ray, I've got a special presentation for you. This is the video of your video introduction that was played for your presentation into the Black Football Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, right here. It's your induction video, and it's quite the watch. Here we go.
Born on June 28, 1948 in Cambridge, Maryland, Raymond Chester attended Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore, where Chester excelled in track, wrestling, and football. After high school, Chester played football at Morgan State University, playing for legendary coach Earl Banks. He was a member of Morgan State's 1968 undefeated team that played Grambling in the famous game at Yankee Stadium. In that game, Chester had more than a memorable performance. He was responsible for 8 of the team's 9 points in the historic victory. Chester was selected in the first round of the 1970 NFL Draft, which was 24th overall, by the Oakland Raiders. He hauled in 7 touchdowns and more than 500 yards in his first NFL season. And Chester received the Rookie of the Year award and was selected to the Pro Bowl. In 1973, the Baltimore Colts saw the Baltimore area native as their missing piece to win championships and traded their overall number 1 pick to get Chester on their roster. In his 5 seasons in Baltimore, Chester caught 148 receptions for over 2,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. He was a key contributor to the Colts, winning 3 straight division titles. Chester was traded back to the Raiders in 1978, and he put up career highs in 1979 with 712 reception yards and 8 touchdowns. The 7-time playoff starter became a Super Bowl champion when the Raiders defeated the Eagles in Super Bowl 15, 27-10. Raymond Chester retired from the NFL following the 1981 season. He's a member of the Maryland Athletic and CIAA Halls of Fame. After the NFL, Chester managed the Lake Cabot Golf Course for 20 years and currently acts as a consultant for golf course development and management. Raymond Chester, Black College Football Hall of Fame, class of 2018.
Ray, next time it's going to be an NFL Hall of Fame. How'd you like that, man?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, Manny. That Pro Football NFL Hall of Fame is it's kind of a mystery sometimes, for some guys, but I have my hopes out, and like any other player, I would certainly be honored to be considered and inducted.
You have records that still stand today as one of the best tight ends. And tell me, you were a first round pick. I want to emphasize that coming out. And there aren't many tight ends in the NFL that have that distinction, are there?
Well, I look at it like this, Zinni. The tight end position has evolved, from the time I played. Say if you went all the way back to John Mackey, who was my favorite player in the NFL, and then Mike Ditka was one of my idols also. The game that they played is so much different than the game that's being played today. Tight ends are really most of the good tight ends in the league right now are featured receivers. Even in my day, it was unusual for me to be a featured receiver. I'd be targeted probably an average of 4 or 5 times a game, and if I caught 3 to 6 balls a game, that'd be a real good game receiving wise for me. On the other side, the amount of line play and blocking that I was required to do was was so much more than these guys are asked to do now, man. I mean, we ran real sweeps, where I was responsible for blocking the man on the end of the line, regardless of whether that was an outstanding linebacker or a split out defensive end. If the teams were in what we call an overload defense, that end would be out over my outside shoulder, a defensive end, like Deacon Jones, guys like that would be out there, and there'd be my guy, And so, some of those battles against those ends, I even won some of those. I won a lot of those, because we had quite a running game when I was, and then the game was balanced, run pass wise, and so, offensively, you generally had about 60 plays on the offense, and those plays were equally distributed between running plays, special plays like screens and draws, and then passing plays. And then you had primarily 4 key pass receivers. You had the XYZ, and then your halfback and fullback divided some spots too. So by the time you divided 60 plays up, running and passing, it didn't leave a whole lot of targets for the tight end. A tight end, through my career, I probably was average being targeted maybe 4.5 times, 5 times a game. I watched the game not recently where one of the top tight ends in the league now, the San Francisco tight end, George Kittle, he caught 11 balls, and he was targeted, Zenny, 16 times.
Wow.
In that game. He was targeted 16 times as tight end. And
wow.
So, and then you look at it, if you take, 16 divided into 60, I mean, that's almost a third of the doggone plays, that they had on offense to run, and they were targeted to the tight end. So, and then I played with, Hall of Fame guys. Going back to Warren Wells, certainly the great Fred Biletnikoff, the greatest Raider receiver ever, Cliff Branch, and guys like that. Not to mention the guys that played on the other side of them, the Marsh Bradshaws and other great receivers that we had. So, there was rarely more than 20, 25. Maybe 30 balls to be spread around between, 5 or 6 really, really top flight receivers.
What do you remember about plays in those days, by the way?
What do I remember about plays?
Yeah,
the thing that, again, the biggest differences as far as I'm concerned is so my game was focused on the amount of time I was in the game. If there were 60 plays, I played almost every down in every situation. I played short yardage, goal line, you name it, I played. They never took me out of the game. Third and long, et cetera, et cetera. I think the thing that I remember was how many times we converted on third and long. 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15 was nothing for us. We just had to, we knew we had to come off the ball a little quicker, cover more distance in a shorter period of time, so that it matched up with the amount of time of protection that the quarterback had. And then, the distribution of run versus pass. So I had to prepare really to be a lineman and at the same time to be a deep threat. And to be a clutch receiver, third down receiver. So pretty versatile. The thing that it sticks out in my mind most is the difference between then and now. Basically, the rule changes.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, if we had been allowed to use our hands in the run game in the way that these guys are allowed to use their hands, most of the guys that are pass blocking today, whether it be interior linemen or tight ends, probably, I will bet you 65% to 70% of the time, that they engaged in a block, they would draw a holding penalty in my era.
Yeah.
The use of their hands, the position of their hands on the outside of the body, and I mean, as long as you don't pull a guy down, you can do anything you want to do with his hand. You know, 2 penalties I see are hands to the face, and when someone gets literally pulled down. But it makes blocking a heck of a lot easier on the offensive side, and conversely, it makes rushing the passer and being a defensive player a lot more difficult, I believe.
Yeah. You know, you were saying interestingly that, you know, it was at the time when there was overshift, the end would be over you, defensive end. And I see that a lot now, but I see tight ends that don't even know how to block them.
The techniques that are used today are, just so much different. A lot of lateral steps, the immediately extending the hands, grabbing, the jersey, more positioning, if the way I look at it is this, is that there's no drive blocking. It's all position blocking and area blocking. And the evidence of that, you look at a guy's helmet. You look at an offensive lineman's helmet or a tight end's helmet today, and you see virtually no scratches on the front of the helmet or the crown of the helmet. You don't see any evidence of contact with the face mask or the helmet, whatever. This maybe is a good thing, given the concussion situation. But the difference is, if you would look at one of my old helmets or one of Art Shell's old helmets or Jim Otto's old helmet, I mean, they're just gashes in the helmet, as a result of just, initial contact and drive blocking, power blocking. Our initial step was almost always a step in the direction or engaging the defensive player, at the same time maneuvering ourselves to create, a bigger hole and wall off the spot. The model was offensively for us, with respect to the run game, was that we wanted to immediately capture the line of scrimmage. In other words, there's no lateral step, no drop steps or whatever, to where the defensive lineman engaged us on our side of the line of scrimmage. Immediately, we wanted to take control of the line of scrimmage and then drive the defenses off the line of scrimmage so as to create gaps and spaces and lanes for our running backs.
And you take pride in this. That's what I love hearing. You take pride in the blocking.
Oh, hey, look, I will tell you something, and I'll say this, and if any people can dispute me if they want to, but I'll just challenge them to go back and look at the film. There's nobody that played the tight end position that took more pride in offensive pass blocking and run blocking than I did. And I don't think it's anybody in my era that did it as well as I did for as long as I did it. I wish that the position of tight end, because in those days it was a true hybrid position. And you were a lineman, but you were a pass receiver, et cetera. So I wish that some credit was given to guys, who played tight end in that era, for their blocking skills. I mean, there were some guys, man, that were just outstanding, run blockers. It wasn't their fault that they were involved in an offense that featured the run. Jim Mitchell, for instance, to play for Atlanta, tremendous run blocker. Lots of guys, and if you had great running backs, if you were in Denver and you got Floyd Little and guys like that running behind you, guess what? You're going to run the ball, 35, 40 times a game. They're not going to throw it 40 times. They're going to run that ball. And if you want to be on the field and be a part of that unit, you got to be a run blocker. You got to be a pass blocker. The same thing. So it's a whole different game. I just wish that when they evaluate, players, regardless of the position, that they take in consideration what was asked of them. You know, some people say, well, how many balls would you have caught today? I mean, in today's game, with the protections that the receivers get, from the jam, not being jammed, no hands on, no touching. It's I think it's unlimited. I mean, I think it's so much easier to on receivers today. And it's across the board than it was in my day. And having said that, it makes it that much more difficult on pass defenders. I feel sorry for DBs and even linebackers today, because the tactics and techniques that they were able to use in my day, to limit my productivity, pass receiving wise, are so much different, than they are today.
You say that, but I just found a clip that shows you giving some DBs a hard time. You're going to love this. Folks, have a look at, this is from the best of Raymond Chester, and have a view at this. And there he is with the Raiders. Watch. Against the Browns. 3 guys, Ray. Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, they Vinny, I always say, people ask me about that play, and I said, they wouldn't let me fall. Every time I got ready to fall. If you watch.
Wait a minute. Ray, you just took this dude's helmet off right here. Look at that. Hey, look, watch.
But Zinni, they wouldn't let me fall. Every time I was getting ready to fall, another guy hit me.
Well, this dude in particular, he got the best. Look at that. Look, watch this. Boom. Okay, helmet's gone.
and poor guy. Most of the guys that were launching those missiles were hitting him.
Oh
man. Yeah, I mean, but there's some things I'm real proud of. Number one is I was a complete tight end, Zinni, goal line, short yardage, whatever, and they predominantly ran, the powers and double teams to my side in critical situations. I'm real proud of my that I averaged 14 yards a catch. Zinni, that's, to me, that's outstanding. I mean, you look today and guys are running, they're catching a dozen balls and they're averaging, 6, 8, 10 yards a catch, something like that, So I'm real proud of my career. And the guys that played with me and against me, they tell the story. They really tell the story. And that's one of the things I regret, too, about the way the Hall of Fame is selected. There's so many guys that are on the selection committee that, I doubt that they understand the real, the criteria that was used to evaluate a player, or that a player needed to play well in every era.
This is something to watch. I mean, you ran a tight end screen too. The Raiders had a tight end screen back then.
Yeah, back in the day we had tight end. Well, there was lots of San Diego and the Raiders. The AFC and that day, man, they were the innovators.
Mm-hmm.
You guys like John Hadel, and Darryl Monica. We had some great quarterbacks. The great Joe Namath. In the Lenny Dawson in the AFC, and the AFC were innovators in a lot of areas. I mean, lots of the motion, that you see, today, the screens, draws, whatever, were all, things that were done back in the early days of the AFC, which made it really, really fun to play. I was fortunate, I was big, and strong, I ran a 9.800. And a low 4.4 40, and that helped me quite a bit. The thing that helped me most, I think, Zinni, was I was a wrestler, in high school and whatever, and so I learned to understand leverage and footwork and upper body strength versus lower body strength throughout my wrestling career, and it made blocking come real easy.
Hey, I got to ask you, who'd you learn that toe tap from in that last catch we saw right here in the end zone? That looks like almost like Fred Biletnikoff. Look, he makes the catch. Watch the feet, folks. Watch it. Bam, bam. Nice.
Oh, hey, man, that's the other thing, everybody, we used to say back when I was playing with the Raiders, we used to say every guy on the team was really a great player. I mean, if I could start naming players, man, at every position, and you would say, "Oh yeah, great player. Oh yeah, great player." Well, I learned from the great Fred Biletnikoff, Warren Wells. Oh my goodness! I mean, you're talking about a guy with untold talent. People don't know about the guys like Warren Wells, guys like Art Powell. We were watching film on all the time. The great Clem Daniels. So we had a really great history of two things. Number one, unique utilization of the backs in the passing game and of the tight end in the passing game. I mean, Billy Cannon, Hewitt Dixon at one time played tight end. So the Raiders were and the AFC, I think, were innovators in the offensive game with respect to things like screens, utilization of the tight end, various motions, and that kind of thing, and using the backs in the passing game.
What do you think of the game as it's played today? I mean, I get teary-eyed watching these because I love football. I mean, I love football now, but this reminds me of how much I love Raider football in the 70s. And in particular, the use of the tight end deep. I mean, a lot of these clips that we're looking at here, which are from the Best of Raymond Chester by Ronald Bethea, are on YouTube. You're wide open, okay? I mean, first I got to ask you, how'd you get so wide open? Was it the player? Was you were just faster, or what was the?
I don't think they were that the league, was used to that kind of speed. I know in the era I played, there were two guys that I thought were kind of hybrid. I was one of them. The other one was Rich Castor, and I think Rich Castor may have been the only guy in the league that could run anything close to what I could run in terms of flat out speed. Rich Castor was a speedster. He was 6'5", played tight end, for the Jets, and I know we were in the All-Star game together one time, and I think Rich ran like a 9,600 or something like that, and 100 yards, and I was somewhere like around the 9,800, range like that. But that's the only guy that I know legitimately could outrun me in that era. And so that was different, somebody big and tall and had, good hands. I'll take that back. I didn't have good hands. I had great hands. But I take it back because good was not good enough. You had to have great hands, if you were going to play, if you're going to line up beside Fred Biletnikoff and guys like Cliff Branch and the great Bobby Chandler. I've played with some great wide receivers, and I learned a lot of things with respect to catching the ball and running routes from them, and also some great quarterbacks.
Hey, what do you remember most about Cliff Branch, but also what do you remember most about Clem Daniels? And I want to say, especially Clem and yourself, among others, like Jim Otto, and we're all great ambassadors to the Oakland community. I mean, Clem had the end zone. You're all about town. And
well, I learned a lot from guys like Ben Davison, Jim Otto, Clem Daniels, business-wise, Willie Brown, whatever. I learned that, in the era that we played, football was not really a career. Football was a job. It was a temporary job. It was an opportunity to earn some fairly decent money for the time, early, over a short period of time. and if you were smart, you would put that money to good use. You buy some real estate, you buy property, you get into business and whatever. And at the same time, I was learning to be a really, really good football player from guys like Freddie and Clem and Gene and Jim Otto and Ben Davis and all those guys. I was learning what they were doing business-wise because they were all engaged in the community, not just as football players, but as businessmen, working in banks, teaching school, buying retail businesses, buying, packaged goods stores, those kind of things, as well as, doing work in the community. I mean, schools, churches, speaking engagements, public service announcement. So, anything I learned as a young adult, when I came to Oakland and was involved with the Raiders, I attribute it to just the great men that were, that made up the Raiders. There's just stories that nobody, people don't pay attention to or don't know, but there's some great guys, and highly successful guys. And Clem Daniels was one of my idols. I just learned, how to handle yourself, business wise in the community, politically. You learn, how to handle yourself. When I look at Josh, the running back for the Raiders, Josh
Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. He just reminds me of Clem Daniels. The same body type, the same type, speed and just ferocious power. when he engaged someone, great hands. I only hope that the Raiders take advantage of this guy's skills and use him more in the passing game and in the screen game, and just recognize the talent he has and use it, not just pounding short yardage or whatever. This guy's got it all. And in my opinion, they got so much talent. It's Zenny. They got so much talent on that team. They just got to figure out how to use it better, because I don't think I'm talking offensively right now. They don't have a weakness on the offense. If they have any weakness, maybe they have an injury here and there, but man, there's no excuse why they can't do anything ever even thought about, offensively with the units they have. Starting with their offensive line. They got an offensive line. There's 32 teams in the league. I bet you 20 of those teams would kill to have that offensive line. So,
yeah. What do you think? I'm going to ask? What do you think of Darren Waller in particular? Because he is your modern day your modern day version of you, essentially. What are your thoughts about Mr. Waller?
Well, my first thoughts when I think of Darren and know his history is that I am really proud of what he's done with his life. I'm really proud of how he resurrected his character, and I don't like to talk a lot about that because it's past, and he's a new man now. But I'm proud of Darren Waller because of that. And then when I look at his athletic ability, man, oh man. He's first of all, he's taller than I am. He's got great hands. He's got great feet. In terms of his ability to maneuver and make quick moves and whatever. I think he's got a lot quicker feet than I had. He was a baseball player. I was a wrestler. But so he was a basketball player. I'm sorry, I was a wrestler. But he's got it all, man. He's got heart. He's got a heart. If anything, I would like to have a half a season with him working on his blocking and his technique there, whatever. But Darren Waller, man, is something special, and the more importantly, because of the way that they have recognized his skill set, and they incorporated into, their offense every game. Every game, they have some stuff in there for Darren, and I'd see nothing but just greatness in his future.
What with all this, Waller, Raiders offensive line, but how much of the Raiders' problem was really related to COVID-19 as opposed to, our favorite beating horse, which is always some aspect of coaching. But let's talk about the pandemic. Oh, by the way, Raiders SP says you need to teach the defense. And he asks if you have a problem with Gruden's play calling in games, which we can get to. But what do you think of the role the pandemic played and how the NFL handled it?
Well, first of all, let me say I was really surprised that the NFL overall was able to pull it off, to pull a season off, given the pandemic and and the propensity for it to spread and whatever. So I think just that they were able to pull together and organize and deliver a season with as few casualties as they had. Now they had quite a few infectious guys that came in, but because of the age of the guys, the condition of the guys, and whatever, they were able to. Guys got sick and then got well and were able to come back and play. I think the whole idea of them, the checks and balances they put into place, the examinations, the testing, and whatever. I think that was really good because I think so many young people look to the NFL and the other leagues, sports leagues, for guidance, how you doing? They look to the players, they look to the coaches. So I think they did a good job overall of being able to produce a season. With respect to the impact that it had, I can't even imagine how tough it's been, for the players to basically, mask and isolate, for them to basically work and perform and practice in a bubble. As far as the coaches and stuff are concerned, the players, not knowing whether you're going to have a player or not, or whether somebody's going to test positive or whatever, all of that was, made it very, very, very difficult, I think, to put together, a lot of continuity. I tell you what, the only thing that that you would say is kind of a balancer is that all the teams had to do the same thing. All the teams were going through the same kinds of problems. So I don't think it impacted any one team, a whole lot more than it impacted another team with respect to, game planning and practicing and that kind of thing like that and whatever. I think it put a lot of pressure on the coaches, as far as I'm concerned, and I think it put a lot of pressure on the second and third, players, in the lineup, because nobody knew, the COVID didn't say, oh, we're not going to bother him. He's a first string player, so we're going to bother, we're going to bother back. COVID, fell where it could, and I think what I do think was exposed when you have situations like this, I think you really get to see who the truly great coaches are.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you can build, if you got all the money and all the materials you need and everything you need, you can build a house.
Mm-hmm.
You got the instructions, you got the the money, the nails, the hammer, the wood. Lots of guys can build a house, build a nice house there. But when you start taking things away, when you start creating situations where you really have got to get the best out of what you have, you may lose your starting quarterback. You may lose your couple starting offensive linemen or whatever. So whatever you got to do, you've got to adjust, not just by, next man up, but you've got to adjust, what your expectations are, that your team is able to do successfully. And then you got to adjust. And what I mean, Zenny, is I'm not talking about adjusting on paper. I'm not talking about putting in fancy plays or this package or that package or whatever. I'm talking about you have to adjust in real time
Hmm.
during while the bullets are flying during a game. So you have there are times when you have to just take what you thought you were going to be able to do and just re-script it, because all of a sudden the circumstances have changed. And what that means to me also, I have this theory, Zenny. I think great coaches that I've been around, what I've noticed that the real great coaches do is they coach the third string and the second string. They coach, they focus on those guys, on backups, because imagine if you coach to the extent that your backup players, okay, when your backup players, could go out and execute and practice and whatever flawlessly. Think about that. Think about the pressure that puts on your starting players if you're constantly making sure that your backup players, your second and third string players, understand the plays, understand field position, understand the rules, understand technique, and whatever. And the thing about backup players is backup players were always willing to put the time in on the field, put the time in the weight room and whatever, because they're always trying to do what? Number two is always trying to get to be number one, right? Number three is always trying to get to be number two.
Right.
And that's what you got to have on a championship team. And by the way, if number three is trying to get to be number two, and number two is always trying to get to be number one, guess what number one is doing? He's swimming for his life. He's like, it's like the old joke. Shine, shine, you're doing fine. You miss one stroke and your butt is mine. And Zenny, that's the secret. That's the secret to a winning football culture. That's the secret. If the guy on his second string doesn't believe that he ever gonna be first team, then you got two-thirds of your team, second string and third string, two-thirds of your team are just going along for the ride. They're not dreaming. They're not dreaming and seeing themselves being a number one receiver. If the guy playing behind Darren Waller doesn't think that he is getting close, to being able to compete for that position and taking that position, if Waller doesn't think that there's any chance of the guy playing second team, taking his spot, then you're not doing a good job coaching. You got to make it. That's it, man. I mean, and when you develop that.
If you were called in to give right now, what happened this year? I mean, we got the COVID virus out of the way, but we started out with 6-2, then 6-2 became 6-4, and for the second straight year, the wheels fell off. And the year before that, the wheels really fell off early on, and they fell off and they roll away. What happened this year in your assessment?
Without having been there, on a daily basis, seeing the guys, watching the practices, seeing, understand the inter-team dynamics that were going on. It's hard to say, Zenny, what happened. All I could see is what I see. When I've analyzed games, I've done some post-game shows and whatever. It involves, you start with the very, very obvious penalties, injuries, blown plays, mistakes. You start with that kind of stuff. But also, Zenny, that's the stuff you start with in practice, in preparation and in training. I don't care, if I'm wasting my time trying to put in 25 new plays and 6 new packages and motions and this and that and whatever, if I'm spending my time doing that, then and my team performs like our team performed this year, and let me qualify that. I don't know what they're doing. I haven't been to the practices. I don't know how Coach Gruden is organizing his practices or whatever. So I'm not saying that's what they did or what they didn't do, but I'm saying if you're not focused on technique, if you're not focused on recognition, if you're not focused on conditioning, and understanding of the package of plays defensively or offensively, if your third string guys don't understand what they're supposed to do in this defense in cover 2 or cover 8 or cover 3 or whatever, if they don't understand what they're supposed to do in all field position, all situations, et cetera, if they don't understand that, you're not doing the job.
Yeah.
They got to understand. They got to understand what they're supposed to do. And the art of getting better is developing more and more technique, more and more good habits, more and more ability to recognize and adjust in real time. Mm-hmm. Because, having it all on paper, to me is like it's like playing Madden football or something, or Nintendo. You got it all, boom, like that. But can you make it? Can you change it in the time between one quarter and the next, mm-hmm. or in the time between one offensive series and the next? Can you say, okay, here's what they're trying to stop. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it look like we're doing the same thing, and then we're going to spin off of that and do something else. To me, if I got an offensively, if I got 10 plays, mm-hmm. right, that my team 10 run plays that my team can execute flawlessly, and I got 10 passing plays, combination routes that my team can orchestrate flawlessly, right? Then I'm going, and then you have your sprinkling in of your special plays, your draws and screens and that kind of thing like that and whatever. So say you got 30 plays, 10 defensive sets and change ups and whatever, and 10 running plays, 10 passing plays and whatever like that. Offensively, if you got that and the guys can execute that come hell or high water, you're doing a great job. Conversely, you can, if you got 350 plays and you got packages going in and out and this and that and whatever and shifts and all that kind of stuff, and the guys only half got it, or some of the guys have it, some other guys don't. You might want to reconsider your approach, with the team and the players that you have. You might want it. The bottom line is this. With respect to defensive football, 65% of the game defensively is hustle. It's just hustle, man. And then you throw in another small percentage part is recognition, right? Another, and then when you get down to that thing, skill, mm-hmm. speed and quickness and strength and all that kind of stuff. But when you finish, portioning it out, the skill set part, the difference between one team and another team, skill set wise, might be 6-7%, 8%. All of the guys out there are thoroughbreds. They all got pedigree. Mm-hmm. They all prove that they could play this game on some, at a bunch of different levels. And to the extent that whether they were drafted or they were traded for, and they're out there, they all can play, right? And so the challenge is communicating with them and motivating them to the point, and disciplining them to the point where they produce and they perform collectively.
Having said that, what explains what do we have to do to get to Kansas City, or is it that we think too much about Kansas City rather than feeling a team that can beat everybody. Because in your day, I don't recall a conversation about anybody but the Steelers, but that was after the playoffs, right? It wasn't like, because the Raiders were winning the West, you know, but there wasn't like this obsession with one team. It was more about the Raider way. And I don't see a talk about the Raider way, or am I wrong?
I don't even know what the Raider way is now. In this, I know it's wanting to win and trying to win, but I don't know how these guys relate to what I related to, et cetera, et cetera. When I think of the Raider way, the first thing I think of is that we worked harder than anybody else, and we practiced harder. We were in better physical conditioning because we were ready to play 60 minutes, the whole game, not give up, come from behind and win and whatever. And I think this same thing. These guys think about these same things, et cetera, and whatever. The thing that I see. And I got to qualify this is because, like I said, I'm not out there watching them. I'm not teaching the techniques or looking at what they think are great techniques. But the techniques that I'm watching when I watch the game and when I watch even the good players, I'm not really impressed with technique. Okay, footwork, placement of the hands, leg drive, that kind of thing. Now, that's not saying that I'm not impressed with the level of athleticism and the quality of athletes that are out there. The modern day league has got tremendous athletes, guys that can leap tall buildings with single bounds. They can reach out and catch a speeding bullet with one hand. I mean, these guys. I mean, you got a ton of athletes out there that have the size and the speed and this and that and whatever. So when you have that kind of athleticism and that kind of talent, let me explain it like this. There was many a time when I went out and I had a primary opponent, a linebacker or a safety or something that I was playing against, or a defensive end I was playing against, that physically they outmatched me physically. If I just relied on the physical game, they dominated me. They did. But the thing that I relied on was making sure that I would always tell myself it's not who hits the hardest, it's who hits the hardest the longest. So that drove me to always want to be in better shape than anybody, in the great shape. And then the thing that I learned is when you out there competing against one of those guys, one of those monsters, you out there and you got Donald or somebody on, you're playing against. Let me tell you, your only chance, your only hope is technique. Your only hope is to outsmart him and to use and to learn the techniques that you can go to or change up with, and to start to neutralize sometimes this guy's dominance. And I don't see that. That's what I don't see when I'm looking at the defense. I'm like, there's things that you have to do that are based on field position, red zone, score of the game, time left to play, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's situations, man, where you, as a safety or a corner, you just have to refuse to allow the inside release. It's not going to happen. You're not going to run the slant on me. There's times when, in situations, field situations, or whatever, where knowing the game, knowing the situation, knowing the coverage that you're in dictates that's not going to happen. You might, and everything, things spin off of that. So if you're going to deny the slant and the inside release, guess what you want your safety who's backing you up to do? You want the safety to cover your butt if the guy runs his step and then he tries to go, on the go,
Mm-hmm.
and you're chasing it, on the go. But you're not you. But you tell that safety, I'm not letting him, get off inside to run an over, a deep over, or a deep or cross, or a doggone slant. I'm stopping the slant because the films show that when they need, they need 5 yards or whatever, they want to run the slant. They're not running the slant. Now, if he steps and then turns up on me and I'm in the chase position, you better get over there and help me because I'm going to stop him from,
Mm-hmm.
So the coordination between the players, the talk, the chatter between the players, defensively, I hear one of the terms that drives me crazy is when I hear a player say defensively say, "Well, the coaches put us in position to win." I flip out. I'm like, coaches don't put you in position to win. They put you on the field and tell you what defense or tell you whatever like that. You put yourself in position to win. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? The way you line up may not be, all that you need, in order to win. I mean, the defensive line. Well, guys, I got to cover my gap, my gap, my gap. This is my gap. That's your gap. Guess what? Guess what? The great player learns how to control his gap, right?
Yeah.
And then make plays 2 gaps down
Yeah.
or 2 gaps back or whatever. So it's I mean, you can't, it's not Nintendo.
No. Mm-mm.
It is not Nintendo. And that bothers me. It always has bothered me, Zenny. And wow, man. I just when I when I when I when I hear that and I see players do that, I mean, it's just so much of it I relate to technique. And I remember when I came to the pros. This is the one thing I remember about the Raiders. Man, I had all kinds of talent. Man, I was lean and fast and and strong and I played at Morgan and I was a great blocker because I played at Morgan.
Yep.
We were Division II, but at Morgan we lost 3 games in my 4 years there of
Wow.
varsity football there. And
Wow.
and we had guys like George Knock and Frenchy Fuqua and Willie Lanier and all those guys were guys on our team. There were 11 guys that got drafted off my team, when we went in the pros. So I kind of had the raw ability, right? But what I learned, man, and this I attribute this to Al Davis,
Mm-hmm.
and the assistant coaches that he had around. Only 9 coaches, you know. Uh, but what they focus on was technique, footwork, hand placement. You know, the releasing. The kind of release you needed to have, the splits based on what the pass rush was going to be like, coming back to the ball. So that makes the difference between guys got you covered. No, they don't. You step back 2 steps to the ball and you make the catch. So technique is what set us apart. It's what made great players. When you show me a great player, I'll show you a guy that's got superior technique. I don't see that. I don't see that. When I'm watching our teams. I mean, we got 20 coaches.
Wow.
And veteran players. Now it may be happening. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure the veteran players are trying to help the younger players and et cetera, et cetera. But if you ask me what I see that could help turn the tide in close games, that they lost or that they could have won or should have won or whatever, it's to me it's technique and just doing the simple things consistently better. doing them, you know, just and then the other thing is if I had any advice that I would give the offense, you know, and I think they're taking it, I would just say empower that big offensive line, man. Man, I mean, I would, you know, teams would kill to have that offensive line,
Yeah,
man.
definitely.
You know, and if you turn those boys loose along with the running backs they have, right? Wow.
Game over.
Wow.
I want to say, but for the fact that we have our first birthday party at 9 o'clock and it's 8:09, I would go even further without stopping. I want everybody to take what you just heard and put it in gold and play it again and again and again and send it to everybody at the Raiders, because I don't know where you're going to hear this kind of sustained, detailed explanation of how football should be done. Ray, thank you very much. That was awesome.
Zenny, it's my pleasure, and I like you because I got a name for you. You know, the name I always have to you is you're the real deal, man.
Oh, thank you.
And I like, you know, because you're always prepared, you research, you know, and you don't pull punches. And I enjoy doing interviews and talks with you and just talking with you. I really enjoy that. And I think, you know, that is something that, along with you know, some other sacred ideas and thoughts that I have, that's a real Raiderism, man. I mean, the bottom line is, you know, in the huddle and after games and whatever, we level with each other, and you know, we accepted our responsibility for being a screw up when we did that, and we distributed the praise when we played big and won big, you know, throughout the whole team. So, hey, I appreciate you, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and go Raiders. I know it's over for this year, but
we got to have you back. Stick around in the backstage. Folks, I'll be back at 9 o'clock Eastern. It's 8:11 Eastern for our first Zenny 62 Media virtual birthday. It's just going to be me talking about, and Ray, I'll send you a link if you want to come by and say a few things, but it's just sort of this is the 1 year anniversary of my company.
Yeah. I love it, man. Congratulations on that and happy birthday. I've got another engagement, Zenny, so I won't be able to do this one, but you know what? I love talking with you because I learn as much as I try to predict.
Well, I learned more of listening to you, and you reminded me a lot of what got me interested in football, but also what I miss about the Oakland Raiders, not taking anything away from Las Vegas or anything. And I want to say this about Vegas. I'm delighted that Las Vegas had something to root for, because more than any other city, Las Vegas has really been damaged economically and socially by the pandemic.
Yeah,
it is just awful what that city has had to endure.
I agree. And you know what? They really have embellished it and or accepted, not embellished, but really accepted the Raider and the Raider family. Nothing but best wishes to Mark Davis and Mrs. Davis and the Raider organization. And I know you're in a good space in Las Vegas. So go Raiders.
Go Raiders. Hey, stick around in the background, folks. Ray, I'll see you, everybody. Thanks.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.